students, welcome to yet another session of my class. We are discussing reading fiction. Today we are going to start our third module, that is modern European fiction. In the third module, we have to study one novel, that is satirical novel, that is Candide by Voltaire. Let us discuss in detail. First of all, we are going to discuss about a writer, novelist, Voltaire. So, Voltaire, pseudonym of Francois Marie Arouet, was one of the greatest of all French writers. Yes, Voltaire is a pen name of a pseudonym of Francois Marie Arouet. And he was one of the greatest of all French writers. That means he was a French writer. And he was one of the greatest of all French writers like Rousseau, Descartes, Newton, etc. And he was a prolific and versatile writer. And in his lifetime, he published numerous works. He wrote so many books and poems, plays, etc. It includes books, plays, poems, and polemics, and published in 18th century. Yes. He belonged to that particular time period, that was 18th century, and during his lifetime he published a lot of works including different types of philosophical books, plays, poems, etc. that was published in 18th century. And he was a key figure in the European intellectual movement known as the Enlightenment. Yes, along with the other great French writers like Descartes, Rousseau, Locke, Newton, etc. This Voltaire was one among the philosophical or the intellectual movement existed in Europe. That was Enlightenment movement. He was a key figure in the European intellectual movement known as Enlightenment. Then what do you mean by this Enlightenment movement? What do you mean by that intellectual movement? And he was uh, one among the intellectuals, including that particular group. And he was a key figure, that is an important figure in the European intellectual movement. Then what do you mean by this Enlightenment movement? It is the European intellectual movement of the late 17th and 18th century. This particular movement was existed in Europe during the time period late 17th and 18th centuries. And what was the ideologies? What was the ideology or their ideals? What was their ideals? This Enlightenment writers or that group of people included in that particular movement, what was their ideologies? That is, they believed in or they emphasized reason and individualism rather than tradition and other religious practices. Yes, that is, they emphasized reason. That is the important point. They their working was based on reason and scientific achievements. That is, they emphasized reason and individualism. They gave much importance to individuality rather than tradition and other religious practices or religious belief, etc. That means they emphasized reason and scientific achievements. Their belief is purely based on reason. So these group of writers, that is Enlightenment, intellectual writers, that group of writers, they were strongly believed in reason and scientific achievements rather than any type of tradition or other religious beliefs, etc. And this Voltaire was a key figure in that group, that intellectual movement, European intellectual movement. It was known as Enlightenment. And he was a controversial figure during his lifetime. During his lifetime, yes, he was considered as one of the controversial figures during that period, that 18th century. And because Why he is considered as a controversial figure? Because he severely criticized the church authority. Because he strongly believed in reason and scientific facts. So he severely criticized the church authority and the clerical power. Through his writings, he severely criticized this church authority and clergy. And he also criticized the French political institutions, and his ideas ultimately found expression in the French and American revolutions. Yes, his ideologies, his philosophical ideologies that were reflected in both French as well as American revolutions. And he also criticized the French political institutions. He severely criticized the church, French political institutions, and most of his ideas are reflected in French and American revolutions. His most famous works included the fictitious Lettres Philosophiques. It is one of the famous one of the famous works by Voltaire, Lettres Philosophiques, and the other one is satirical novel Candide, our prescribed novel. These two works are very famous. And he was a French Enlightenment writer, historian, and philosopher, famous for his wit, his criticism of Christianity, especially the Roman Catholic Church. I already told you he severely criticized the church authority, and his criticism of Christianity, especially Roman Catholic Church, is severely criticized. And moreover, he was a French Enlightenment writer, historian, and philosopher famous for his wit. That's why, yes, we are going to study his satirical novel, Candide. That is, he was famous for his wit. Next, he believed in the efficacy of reason. That is the strong ideal emphasized by Enlightenment writers. That is, he believed in the efficacy of reason. He strongly believed in reason rather than tradition. He believed social progress could be achieved through reason and that no authority, religious or political otherwise should be immune to challenge by reason. He strongly believed that social progress or the development of society could be achieved only through reason and scientific facts, and that no authority or any type of religious teachings or political or otherwise should be immune to challenge by reason. That is, no other institutions like any other authority or religious institutions or political. Yes, it could not be give that success or that progress in the society. That is his belief. He believed strongly what that social progress or the development of society could be achieved only through reason, not through this authority or religious or any type of political institutions. And he emphasized in his work the importance of tolerance, especially religious tolerance. And yes, he emphasized in his writings that is the importance of tolerance, that willing to submit or accept that tolerance, or especially religious tolerance. And moreover, he was a deist. What do you mean by deist? He was considered as a deist. So deism refers to natural religion. One who believes in natural religion can be called deist. So he was a deist in the sense deism refers to natural religion, the acceptance of a certain body of religious knowledge that is inborn in every person or that can be acquired by the use of reason. That is the belief of deist. That is a certain body of religious knowledge, that is a part of or a portion of that, a certain acceptance of a certain body of religious that is inborn in every each and every individual, every person, or and that can be occurred, that portion can be occurred by the use of reason, use of one's reason or intellectualism, and the rejection of religious knowledge. So they were called deists, that is, strongly believed in natural religion, that is, the acceptance of that portion of religion that is inherent in each and every individual. and that can be occurred only through reason and the rejection of complete rejection of religious knowledge. Such kind of people, or that group of people were called deists, and Voltaire was a deist because he did not believe in any religious institutions, or he severely criticized the church and other teachings. He strongly believed in reason and individuality rather than any type of tradition or religious practices. That's why he was called a deist. That is, refers to natural religion. He believed that that certain body of religious knowledge that is inborn in every person, and that can be occurred by the use of reason and the rejection of religious knowledge. And he believed in not by faith, rather by reason. Then he uses satire as a means of conveying his opinions about many aspects of European society in the 18th century. He uses satire. I already told you, he was famous for his wit. He uses satire as a means of conveying his opinions about many aspects of European society in the 18th century. He severely criticized these political institutions, other authority, religious institutions, their teachings, then church, especially Roman, all these. Yes, he severely criticized with the help of, or he uses satire as a means to criticize everything that was, yes, against his belief, that is existing against his belief in the society. So satire as a means, and our prescribed work is also a satirical novel. And he criticizes religion, the evils found in every level of society, and a philosophy of optimism when faced with an intolerable world. Yes, he criticizes religion, evils found in every level of society, and the philosophy of optimism when faced with an intolerable world. He criticized everything that is against his belief in, that is existing against his belief in the society. Then about Candide, our prescribed novel. What is this novel about? Candide is a French satire first published in 1759. Its publishing year is 1759, and it is a French satire. And it is one of the best known work by Voltaire. Candide is considered as one of the best known uh, works by Voltaire. It reflects Voltaire's lifelong aversion to Christian regimes of power and the arrogance of nobility, etc. It reflects Voltaire's lifelong aversion or his dislike or strong opposition to Christian regimes of power and the arrogance of nobility. He was against Christianity or Christian teachings, especially this Roman Catholic Church. It also criticizes certain aspects of the philosophical movement of the Enlightenment. Yes. It also criticizes some aspects of the philosophical movement of the Enlightenment. It attacks the school of optimism that contends that rational thought can curtail the evils perpetrated by human beings. It attacks the school of optimism that condemns um, that rational thought. Condemns means accusing or something like that. The condemning or accusing in public. That is, it attacks, severely attacks, this candidate attacks the school of optimism that condemns that rational thought can curtail or reduce the evils perpetrated by human beings. It is a savage denunciation of metaphysical optimism. What do you mean by this metaphysical optimism? Metaphysical optimism means it looks or hopes to look beyond. That means we can approach what appears out of reach. So it is a savage denunciation. This satirical novel is a savage. Savage means very severe or fierce or violent. Denunciation in the sense means act of condemning or accusing in public or giving formal notice of the end of an agreement. So it is a savage denunciation of metaphysical. It is a severe criticism It's a savage denunciation of metaphysical optimism. And this Candide is a central text of the Enlightenment. And it is questioned and harshly criticized the traditional views of science, religion, and the state. It questioned that and harshly criticized that traditional views of science and religion and the state. And Enlightenment thinkers believed in using reason and scientific experiment rather than doctrine and custom. These Enlightenment writers, that group of intellectuals, they believed in using reason, that is, using one's own reason and scientific experiment rather than any type of religious doctrine or custom that was existing in the society. And this particular satirical novel, it is a savage denunciation of metaphysical optimism. And Candide, yes, as a novel of the Enlightenment, Candide satirizes and critiques almost every powerful institutions of its era, that during 18th century. Candide satirizes and severely criticized almost every powerful institution, especially this religious, political, other traditions, etc. Severely criticized all other powerful institutions that existed during its era. I think all of you understand this session, that is about Voltaire and just about Candide. And we have to discuss more points regarding Candide, and that we will discuss in the next class. So it is a French satire published in the year, and it is one of the best known works by Voltaire, and it reflects Voltaire's lifelong aversion to Christian regimes of power and the arrogance of nobility. Then uh, it also criticized some aspects of the philosophical movement of Enlightenment, and as a novel of the Enlightenment, it satirizes and critiques almost every powerful institutions of era, and it is a savage denunciation of metaphysical optimism. Metaphysical optimism, I already told you, it looks or hopes to look beyond that means. We can approach what appears out of reach. That is the thinking. That is metaphysical optimism. And it is considered as a central text of the Enlightenment. Yes. There is a homework for you, and the homework is write a note on Voltaire and about Candide. Write your homework and send back to me. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you again.